Today we're going to talk about downloadable PDF patterns. Welcome back to my channel. And if you're new here, my name is Marisol. I am the designer and founder of Sonera Design. So the thing about downloadable PDF patterns is that you kind of get a little bit of instant gratification. I'm going to share with you a few tips on purchasing, downloading, and printing your PDF pattern. Now, I know some of you don't necessarily like printing and taping together the pages to create your sewing pattern. So I'm going to talk a little bit about using a copy shop to print your pattern. I'm also going to share some resources on using a projector to project the image of your sewing pattern directly on your fabric. So I'll share a little bit about that later. Let's start with purchasing your PDF patterns. I'm going to share my computer screen with you and kind of go through what that normally looks like. For demonstration purposes, we're going to go on my website. I'll go to the sewing patterns section, click on the pattern I want, and I'm going to add it to cart. And this is very similar to any other product. Once you're in your cart, you're going to click checkout, and then you're going to enter all of your information, your email, your billing address, just like you normally would. And now continue to payment. Here, I'm just entering some test information just for demonstration purposes. And here you would enter all your credit card information, click Pay Now. And here's your confirmation page along with your link to download the pattern right there and then. All right, now that we've downloaded the file, let's go ahead and start printing. One more thing I wanted to mention, if you get out of your confirmation page and forgot to click download, don't worry. You normally get an email, and the email itself will have a link for you to download your pattern. Once you download your file, it'll be in the download section. You're going to open that folder, and once you do that, you're going to see a zipped file. Depending on your computer, that process may look a little different, but here are all of the files included in this particular pattern. You have your A0 shop printer file, which basically is the file that you would send over to have it printed on a large format printer, which is very helpful. And this is the file you would also use for your online services so they can print it and mail it to you. Another file you're probably going to see, depending on the pattern, is the file for your sewing instructions. And in this case, I'm using my sewing instructions sheet as an example. I particularly like to have a summary of the sewing steps here, and then a link to the sew along on my YouTube channel. And that's where you'll find all of the steps. You can use the QR code and go directly to my YouTube channel. And last but not least, you have your print at home sewing pattern file. And if you have a pattern that has different sizes, right here on the left hand side, you would select all the layers to print only that size. But because this is a tote bag, it only has one size, and it's just a table of contents. Now we're ready to print our pattern. We're going to click the printer icon. In the settings window, we're going to make a few selections. I highly recommend that you only print the first page so that you can measure your test square, and I'll talk about that in a minute. Go to the More Settings section and check your paper size, but most importantly, make sure you select actual size. That is going to make sure that you have it printed at the right scale. So let's go ahead and get this printed. Okay, now that we have our pattern printed, as I mentioned before, I've already measured my test square, which is 2 inches in this case, or 5.08 centimeters. That's very important. Please make sure that you don't skip that step, because that's how you know if you printed your pattern on scale. I always recommend that you print the first page first, measure your test square, and then print the rest of your pattern. All right, so let's go ahead and assemble the pattern. So I'm going to move my camera to show you the process. So for this pattern, we have 2 assembly guides. We first have these large numbers on each page. So basically it numbers each page as you assemble the pattern. It also has a guide at the corner of each page, and you're going to match the letter to form a full circle. So basically I like to lay out the pages first to kind of see how many pages per row I'm going to have, and then that lets me know which side of the page I need to cut off. Now, in my sewing room, I have a rotary cutter, the smaller blade, that I have designated for all of my paper cutting. This I don't really use for cutting fabric, only paper. And what I like to do is you can either use a ruler, or I just basically like to freehand this part, and I just kind of go in. Let me move this stuff around so you can get a better view. And I know that this page and this page is going to go together because you have the letters A that need to match each other. So I'm going to cut off this margin here right on this line, and that's going to match this line here, and I don't need to cut this one because I'm going to tape it. All right, so let's go ahead and cut that off. Okay, once that's done, I'm going to get my tape. I'm going to put the 2 pages together, matching my guidelines and my circle symbols, and then I'm going to tape it together. All right, and then I'm going to move on to the next page, which is page number 3, and I know that I'm going to match B with B. Again, same thing. I'm going to cut off one side. That way I don't have to bother cutting all of the margins off. I only cut the ones that are necessary. And then I'm going to line this up, and this circle shape is very, very helpful. Tape that together, and now I can move on to my next page, which is number 4. And again, all I have to do is cut this thin line. Be careful when your pattern page has, if most patterns have a thick line to show the cutting line for the actual pattern piece, and a thinner line where the file of the full pattern ends, or your guide to cutting off your paper. So I'm cutting it off right here on this thin line because this is my pattern. So if you can see the semicircle, it extends right over to this line here. So I'm going to go ahead and cut that off. I'm going to match my letters, my lines, and I'm going to tape that together. All right, and I know that for this pattern, page number 5 is going to be my last page for this column. So I'm going to go ahead and cut this off. And I'm going to match my circle symbol and my lines. There we go. And now, if I look at page number 6, you can see that the letter now goes back to A. That simply means that now we're going to cut off this portion of the page, and we're going to match that circle shape with the letter, and we're going to tape that together. All right, so For the purposes of showing you these steps, I only printed 6 pages because I already went through this step. I just forgot to film it. So let me show you what that looks like. And this particular pattern looks like this once it's done. So it has 5 pages across, 3 columns, total of 15 pages. And now you're ready to start cutting out your pattern pieces and then cut your fabric and you can start sewing. All right, now let's talk about a couple more options. One of the options you have if you don't want to spend the time taping your pattern together is to use your A0 file and send that over to a copy shop. Now, you can find a place to do that locally. Think places like Office Depot, Staples, FedEx, UPS. You can also look for small businesses locally that have large format printing available. I've heard possibly businesses that specialize in architecture and things like that. There are also some online companies that will print it and mail it to you. I've never used any of those, but there are several that I've heard of, like PDF Plotting and Brooklyn Motif Printing. Now, I did find a great blog post by Helen's Closet that has a whole list that includes online companies in the US and in other countries. So I will add a link to that in the description. The other thing that I wanted to mention is projector sewing. And it's been around for a little while. I am starting to do some research on that because as I add more sewing patterns to my line, that is something that I want to include. I want to include the option of using a projector. Basically what that is you project the image of your pattern directly onto your fabric, which is great because you don't have to print your pattern and cut it out or have it printed by another company. Now, I found a really good blog post on how to get started with projector sewing, and I'll add a link to that in the description as well. I think that's all I have for today. Thank you so much for watching, and if you enjoyed this video and you found it helpful, please subscribe to my channel and turn on your notifications. See you in the next video.